Welcome into the Bonesville Pregame podcast. Al Myatt, joined by Kevin Monroe. Kevin, of course, great defensive back in his playing days at East Carolina, and now an integral part of the Pirate Radio Network. Kevin, I think, is going to be on hand Saturday. East Carolina wrapping up the 2023 season at home against Tulsa, 2 p.m. kickoff. Kevin, the Pirates no longer have that scoring streak. 322 games that East Carolina had not been shut out. Defense played very well in Annapolis last week, but a 10-0 loss. Pirates do have a significant home scoring streak going. Have not been shut out at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium since 1984. So that streak is intact, but senior day and a lot to play for. Send these seniors out with a win, and offensive coordinator Donnie Kirkpatrick, this will be the last game that he calls plays as a Pirate, but a lot to play for despite the 2-9 record.
Yeah, Al, you mentioned the shutout streak, and unfortunately, that was my first college start on the road at the Carrier Dome as a sophomore against Donovan McNabb, and we just got blitzed. And they scored from the beginning of the game and never stopped, and our offense never got going, as you would assume, getting 0 points. So 56-0. So now, in the record books, it'll no longer say that game as the last time the Pirates were shut out. I hate that for this team, but for me and my guys in the mid 90s, we're happy to get that stigma off of us. But just what another disappointing offensive day for the Pirates. Just really couldn't get anything going, couldn't run the football. The passing game really wasn't there. They had times where you thought they were going to put something together and go down and score, or at least get a field goal. And it just never came together. It was hard to watch. But as you said, defensively, once again, Blake Harrell's team show up. They tackled well. They played good assignment football. Obviously, Navy scored in the first quarter, the only touchdown of the game. And, they broke a couple of I think they got a long pass for 20-something yards, and they got a long run for a touchdown, and kind of broke open, the scoring there. But outside of that, alignment, assignment football, when you're playing that triple option, as we talked about, as being the keys to the game going into that game, they were all they were handling it well. They tackled well. They lined up well. They read their keys, and they were able to keep this Navy offense that, had shown some spurts at times of being pretty decent. They held them down. And so, the quarterback was only, a 5'7" guy. He threw the ball okay. He was slippery running the football. Fullback, pitch guy were good runners. And so it was not an easy task, regardless of the midshipmen being 4-5 or whatever the record was at the time. Still a stout Navy offense, and the defense showed up and played well. So I was happy to see the defense do that. And, once again, we're kind of looking over at the offense like, get it going. And they were unable to. And that leads us to where we are now with the news that broke this week about Donnie Kirkpatrick stepping down as offense coordinator, or mutually agreeing to no longer be the offense coordinator. I can't say that I'm surprised. Does he deserve all the blame? Probably not. I don't think either one of the quarterbacks that played this year were ready to be starters at the college level. Does that mean they weren't developed? Or does that mean they just, there wasn't enough development in the world to get those guys ready? I don't know. I'm not at practice every day. But I will say, the product that was put on the field this season is well below what fans and analysts like myself expect from East Carolina football. And so it's not surprising at all that they're making this move, and we'll just have to see where they go from here.
Kevin, you look at the offense, and a lot of inexperienced players on the offensive line and some first-year players who transferred. There was question marks about Rajay Harris as a running back coming back from knee surgery. I think the running back stable was certainly adequate, but when you compare it to having Keaton Mitchell last year, it was a step down. And quarterback situation, the same with Holton Ahlers, now in the Seattle Seahawks organization. So, you lose receivers like Isaiah Winstead, C.J. Johnson, And I think there was a drop off in talent overall on the offense this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Al. I think certainly Isaiah Winstead was a stud. He's not a speed guy, but he gets open, runs good routes. He's a big body, catches the football with his hands. Was very sure-handed, and to go through this season with so many drops, you definitely miss a guy like that. C.J. Johnson also was a guy who was pretty sure-handed. I mean, he wasn't the route runner that Isaiah Winstead was, and kind of got in his own head sometimes and gotten some pushing and shoving matches with DBs. But he had some monster games at East Carolina, throughout the years. He would just all of a sudden show up and just go nuts in a game. And so missing him and having his breakout games was a big deal as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see, and I know that you're going to hit on this a little bit later as well, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Pirates go and get a minimum of 3 offensive linemen, a minimum of 2 receivers, and at least 1 quarterback in the portal, because those are the positions they need offensively right now. I agree with you that the running back room is adequate. I would even say above adequate if with the right quarterback and the right offensive line. I think you got between Bond and a couple of those guys, they put together some nice runs throughout the year. They put together some nice games individually, and it was 5 of them. And so I don't have any doubt that coming back, they'll be ready as a running back room if they can get better on the offensive line and better at quarterback.
Well, I think the coaching staff is kind of lining up on the starters line for the transfer portal to open up. And Coach Houston said affirmative when asked about going after a quarterback to bring in and maybe stabilize things offensively. Donnie Kirkpatrick has certainly been a part of some great successes at East Carolina. He was on the staff when East Carolina won 2 Conference USA championships with Skip Holtz at coaching, and actually played with 2 quarterbacks during that season. Pinckney and the other quarterback slips my mind at the moment. Maybe I'll think of it before we sign off on the podcast today, but didn't work out with 2 quarterbacks this year. And Donnie Kirkpatrick, there's speculation about who his replacement will be. Shane Montgomery has been senior offensive analyst for the Pirates. That's his title, but he has extensive experience in football bowl subdivision as an offensive coordinator. So I know that Coach Houston said there's been a lot of interest in that position. He wants to fill it quickly and retain offensive commitments for the upcoming recruiting class and have things in place when the portal opens up. So I think we're going to see a quick hire, and he's going to make sure everything fits. But he is going forward quickly with that, according to his plan.
Yeah, I know that this was a tough decision for Coach Houston. It's one that had to be made, but he and Donnie go way back and obviously came from James Madison together as he was office coordinator with him at James Madison. But it's just, whether you think it's all on Donnie or you think some of it is on him, either way, the offense was abysmal this season, and something has to change. And that's usually coaching. I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Mason Garcia hit the portal. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, and the system that he was in this year does not fit him. Now, that could change with the offensive coordinator. New offensive coordinator comes in. Maybe they can fit a system around Mason Garcia, and maybe he has a role in this offense going forward. I don't know, but if I'm him, I'm trying to, to figure out where I am athletically, ability-wise, and is this the place for me? I love his loyalty up till now. But I just don't see a fit, for him going forward, especially if, the coach is outwardly saying he's going to the portal to get a quarterback. You would assume so. So we also saw Tegan Wilk announce this week that he is heading somewhere else and hitting the portal. And so, he's been a guy, he's been injured lately, but he was a guy to start the season off, was a heck of a player at safety and has been for the last couple of years. And before that, he was a great player on special teams. So, the portal is going to be the Wild Wild West, as it always is. I would think that East Carolina would be an attractive place for a quarterback that's either at the FCS level, tearing it up and wants his opportunity to play FBS football, or maybe one that's on the FBS level, maybe a Power 5 school that is not going to see the field, that's playing behind, a really good quarterback or two that knows he can come to East Carolina and play. And so I would imagine there'll be lots of interest coming here to play football. And knowing the defense that the Pirates put on the field, this past season as a quarterback, you're just saying to yourself, I can go and get us in the end zone. I can score points. If I got a defense like that, we're going to win games. And that'd be what I would be preaching if I were Mike Houston, that, hey, Blake Harrell's not going anywhere. That defense is coming back to be stronger than ever. We're going to hold teams to 20 points or less per game. I just need somebody to come put us in the end zone. And I think that's going to be an attractive sell to a quarterback, some offensive linemen, and some receivers.
We've not really seen Raheem Jeter this year, and he certainly is a run throw type of guy from what is presented about him. Don't know what his status will be going forward, but Thanksgiving weekend, Kevin, and students will be on break. Basketball game Tuesday night against Kennesaw State, and the students were certainly rewarded that stayed on campus to go to that game. Bobby Pettiford Jr. hitting a shot buzzer beater from about 45 feet for a 1-point win, and a lot of excitement about basketball. And I know you have some recollections about, football on the weekend after Thanksgiving. And what do you expect in terms of fan support at Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium? The Pirate players will have had the campus to themselves more or less for several days.
I'll start with the Pirate basketball program and my connection with Bobby Pettiford. So Troy Smith, who you'll remember should be a Hall of Fame wide receiver, hopefully at some point at East Carolina, but was a great wide receiver here. He lives up in the Raleigh area with me, and he's a manager director over at a local Parks and Rec gym. But in his spare time, he coaches AAU basketball, and he is a really good coach, and so much so that he was sought out by Chris Paul to coach his 16-year-old and 17-year-old CP3 teams on the AAU circuit. And CP3 has some of the best talent, all over the country every year. So one of the players on Troy's CP3 team a few years back was none other than Bobby Pettiford. And so Troy coached Bobby. He was one of the best players on his team. Obviously, he leaves high school and goes to Kansas. You don't go to Kansas unless you're, a top 20 basketball player coming out. But he was a little bit undersized. He's 6'6'1" or whatever, playing point guard, shooting guard. And so he played as a true freshman, but just didn't get on the court, I think, as much as he would like, and made the decision to transfer back and come to East Carolina, being a North Carolina kid. So we were all thrilled to have him back, knowing that what he'd done on the AAU team and being a big-time player at North Carolina. So to see him not only have the game-winning buzzer beater, Sports Center top #1 play in the country last night, Tuesday night, but also he had his season high 18 points. So I think he's kind of coming out of his shell and being that player that we've all seen him be over the years. And I think that the Pirates got a good one in him. So excited to see Bobby doing well. Thanksgiving Day and after Thanksgiving games. We've had Friday games after Thanksgiving. We've had Saturday games after Thanksgiving. We've been on the road, been at home. As a player, I've done this, but also as an analyst over the years, I've been traveling, and it's interesting. I mean, it's, home obviously is better. If you're home, then, maybe you're in driving distance as a North Carolina kid. Maybe you're in driving distance to be able to shoot home for Thanksgiving with your folks. But more often than not, it's the team staying together, eating together. They usually have a big team meal around Thanksgiving if the team is especially at home or on the road. Either way, they find a way to eat together. But it's just different. As you said, the students are all gone. There's nobody on campus. And it's just you guys. It's almost like preseason camp. It's one of those times where you get a little homesick, right? You're a little homesick from your family because you're always with them during the holidays. So I think the coaches try to take good care of them to make sure that they're okay. But, yeah, I've been on the road. I remember being at Marshall and a couple of different places on Thanksgiving weekend and everything being closed and you can't go anywhere or do anything. You're just kind of sitting in your room, maybe playing video games or hanging out with the guys. But as they go out and play a home game, I would expect the season ticket holders to show up. Maybe people that, have traveled in town from out of town for Thanksgiving, maybe will show up. Obviously, there won't be very many students there. So I don't expect a big crowd, but I've been surprised this season as to the turnout that the Pirates have gotten, considering, how the product they put on the field hasn't been great. They've had some decent crowds. And so that's, one of those things that you got to be proud of. You're proud of your university, proud of this, the fans for continuing to show up. So I would imagine it'd be, somewhere in the 20s. If we get in the 30s, I'd be surprised in terms of thousands of fans. But, it's always fun to have something to do after Thanksgiving to go out and watch a football game.
Back up just a minute. I think it was Rob Cass and Patrick Pinckney, the quarterback together, two quarterback system. They won I believe they beat Boise State in the Hawaii Bowl with that duo at quarterback. But there's some players bowing out of the program. And I know you remember your senior day because I remember your senior day. It was one of the great moments in East Carolina football history.
Yeah, 1999, East Carolina at the time is 9-2. Or I guess going into that game, we were 8-2. And we were facing NC State at home. A win would make Steve Logan the winningest coach in the history of the program. But also it's a rivalry game with NC State coming to the house. Jamie Burnett's a quarterback for them, good player. They got good players on both sides of the football. It was an exciting game, a fun game. I think the Pirates, we ended up winning by a couple touchdowns. And it was the biggest crowd in East Carolina history at the time. That's since been broken, but back then they brought in the end zone stands at both ends because the scoreboard end wasn't enclosed and the other end where the Murphy Center was obviously not enclosed. So they were able to bring in stadium seats at both ends, kind of like Appalachian State did for the East Carolina game this year to set their attendance record. But it was just a madhouse. And I can just remember running out as a senior before the game, going to see my parents and getting acknowledged. And, I had one of the bigger ovations, not because I was, the best player, but because I was a Greenville kid. And, they're saying, from Greenville Rose, to East Carolina, Kevin Monroe, and, the place goes nuts. And so I'll never forget that day. I keep the 5x7 photo of myself and my parents on the field for my senior day in my office. So definitely very fond memories of my senior day. And I know these guys, Julius Wood and Jalen Johnson, these guys have put their, blood, sweat, and tears into the program for a while now. Obviously, Jalen was a transfer, but he's been here a couple years. It's a tough moment to know it's your last game.
And yet there's some motivation to go out as a winner.
Oh, there's no question. We were hoping to win 3 in a row, get that one at Navy and then get this one, and you build that kind of momentum going into the offseason and say, hey, recruits, we figured out what our issues were. We've turned things around. Not only that, but where we were weak, we're going to get stronger. We're moving on from our offense coordinator. We're going to get another quarterback. We're going to get some better players. We need you to come in here and help us to get better. Our defense is going to keep building blocks from where they were as one of the best defenses in the conference. And so we didn't get that win at Navy, but, we didn't show poorly defensively. We weren't embarrassed. We just couldn't get it going offensively. So same story, and so now you go into this game. I think you're 4-point favorites, where, we haven't been favorites very often this year. And so, you go in against a team that's struggling just like you, except for they are, a long way from home. I can remember taking that trip to Tulsa. It's not close. They're a long way from home. And so they'll have a long flight after Thanksgiving, trying to get into Greenville and play that game. And they got nothing to play for. They've already had their senior day. They can't make a bowl game. They don't want to be in Greenville, North Carolina. I can promise you that. And so hopefully East Carolina can take advantage of all those things happening.
Well, that's right, Kevin. And, of course, great opportunity for the Pirates to close out with a win and take something in addition out of the 2023 season. And you've got some guys, DJ Davis is going to be a part of Senior Day. You mentioned Julius Wood and Jalen Johnson, some players that have had significant contributions to the program. Tulsa is on the same range in terms of success that East Carolina is this year. Both programs have been in a lot of games. I think Tulsa is a little more prolific offensively. East Carolina is a little more of a stalwart defense. So I think the matchup between Tulsa's offense and East Carolina's defense is going to be important in this game. And maybe the Tulsa defense will be one that ECU can exploit to a degree on offense. But let's talk about that Bonesville tradition. Kevin's keys to the game.
Yeah, so Tulsa will be starting a freshman quarterback in Kirk Francis, and he's not a bad player, but he's averaging about 53% completions in a game, and teams want to get to about 60% or above. So he's got a tendency to throw that ball a little bit loose and not on target, but that's going to happen from true freshmen. They've had 4 different quarterbacks throw at least 30 passes this year. So we talk about East Carolina, struggling to figure out the quarterback position. They're at the same spot, and they're ending the year with this freshman. He's thrown 4 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions and about 220 yards per game. So he can get it done. They're putting up 22 points a game, whereas they're giving up defensively almost 35 points a game. So as you said, they have the ability to score a little bit, but they're not doing so well defensively. So this will be the opportunity for East Carolina's offense to maybe get some momentum going. So I'll start there on offense. Offensively, the offensive line up front has got to maintain the line of scrimmage. They've got to move the chains. We talk about this week in and week out. It's been my number one key all year long because they tend to stall on third downs and struggle. And they did it again this past week against Navy. They can't move the chains. They can't get in the scoring range. You have the good game from Rob Conrad. That was the fullback at Syracuse. Andrew Conrad. He had a good game 2 games ago, and then this game comes out, misses his first field goal, and so they just couldn't get the momentum going. So offensively, you got to move the chains. You got to win up front, get the run game going, but you got to move the chains. That's going to be my first key. Second, on defense, get after this true freshman quarterback. He's been sacked a few times. He has negative 20 yards rushing this year. He's not a run threat, and he's a true freshman. So he's going to be looking around, looking at the defensive line coming at him, and we've got some dogs up front. That's what they've been doing all year long. Chad Stevens and Jeremy Lewis and Deontay Johnson just getting after quarterbacks, getting some hurries. It went until the second half of the year they started really getting sacks, and so they're kind of rolling now. So they've got to win up front and get back there and fluster that true freshman quarterback, and hopefully he can throw some interceptions in that game. So certainly, getting after him up front. And then big plays. The Pirates have been missing big plays lately this year. They had a couple in the UTSA game. They've had some on defense all year long, but offensively, they just not had very many. And so you think back to a year ago when Keaton Mitchell would break a 50-yarder almost every game. You just don't have that home run threat anymore. And certainly with teams stacking the line of scrimmage against East Carolina, the run game has just been non-existent all year long, barely getting 100 yards a game rushing. So they've got to hit some home runs on offense, whether it's hitting a post route over the top or a running back breaking for a big one or a receiver breaking a tackle and going to the house. They've got to find a way to get some big plays to score some points here against Tulsa. So I'm excited about it. I think if they can win up front offensively, move the chains, defensively win up front, but get after the quarterback, and then offensively, again, get some big plays, 20 yards or plus, I think they can win this football game.
All right. Senior day on Saturday, Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium, 2 p.m. kickoff, East Carolina taking on Tulsa. And, Kevin, we may do a retrospective next week on the season and what lies ahead for the program. But, as always, enjoyed doing the Bonesville Pregame podcast, and I'll see you next time.
Appreciate it, Al.